Hello, and welcome to Book Reviews Kill, a podcast about fantasy, sci-fi, and horror novels. I'm Effy.
And I'm Chad.
And I'm Evan.
And you're joining us today for our recap and discussion of Morningstar, Book 3 in the Red Rising series by Pierce Brown.
All right, Effy, third book in. What were your thoughts?
This was my favorite one so far.
Really?
Okay, well, I want to dig more into that. I want to do the recap first, though. But before we do that, I want to just say I am continuously amazed at the amount of story Pierce Brown can jam into one book.
There's a lot going on. There's so much going on, all from one character's perspective, too.
Evan, did you get any, did you like this one more or less than your initial read many moons ago?
I liked Morningstar a lot more because I think when I first read this series, I think I liked Golden Sun the most and then Red Rising after that and then Morningstar after that. But I think now it's Golden Sun is still my favorite, very closely followed by Morningstar and then Red Rising at the bottom of the three.
Oh, really? I think I would do your initial. I think I'd be Golden Sun, Red Rising, Morningstar.
Oh, really? Yeah. I think that this one definitely had the characters seemed a lot more rounded out. I could empathize a lot more with what they were going through. It didn't seem so like bombastic and like, what the hell are you doing? Which was like a lot of what Golden Sun. There was still a little bit of that in this book,
yes.
But I think Effy put it really well. We were talking about it a couple days ago, and Effy said something to the effect of like, I like the characters more.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that is a good way of saying it. Effy, before the recap, what's the order of your favorite?
I would say Morningstar, Red Rising, Golden Sun.
Interesting. I love it. That's why we brought you on. Because Chad and I would have just been agreeing with each other.
That's crazy. What a diverse group we are.
Well, without further ado, let's get right into the recap and then we can start really digging into what we thought about Morningstar.
Let's do it.
Darrow is a shadow of his former self after a year of torture and imprisonment at the hands of Adrius Au Augustus, the Arch-Governor of Mars, better known as the Jackal. Across the society, Darrow is believed dead after a public execution faked by the Jackal and Octavia Au Lune, the Sovereign. Sevro Au Barca, now the leader of the Sons of Ares, sends his deputy Holiday Nakamura to rescue Darrow. Darrow discovers that Victra Au Julii is also alive and frees her as well. After escaping to a hidden rebel stronghold, Darrow and Victra join Sevro's gang of howlers. Their first mission is to kidnap Quicksilver, the richest man in the society, who they believe is the Jackal's silent partner. Darrow and company stumble into a peace negotiation between Cassius Au Bellona, Moira Au Grimace, and the Death Knight on one side, with Darrow's old friends Virginia, Mustang, Au Augustus, and Cavix and Daxo Au Talamanis on the other. The room erupts into a bloody skirmish. Moira and the Death Knight are killed. Mustang is shocked to find Darrow alive, and the Howlers manage to escape with Quicksilver and Cavix as prisoners. Quicksilver reveals that he had secretly co-founded the Sons of Ares with Sevro's late father, Fitchner Au Barca, and offers his considerable resources to Darrow. Cavix also makes peace with Darrow and offers him his allegiance. The sun sees control of the moon Phobos as a distraction, allowing Darrow, Ragnar, and Holiday to slip away to seek an alliance with Ragnar's mother, Aaliyah Snowsparrow, the Obsidian Queen. They are intercepted and joined by Mustang, who renews her dedication to Darrow and his cause. They learn too late that they have been followed by an enemy ship, and both ships exchange fire and crash into the frozen wasteland of Obsidian territory. Plagued by cannibalistic tribes of Obsidian outcasts, Darrow and his companions ambush their gold pursuers, Aja Au Grimace and Cassius Au Bellona. Darrow and Mustang neutralize Cassius, but Ragnar is mortally wounded by Aja before she escapes. Ragnar's sister, Effy, arrives in time to be reunited with him, only to watch him die. Hoping that the fierce Obsidian warriors will join his rebellion when they see that their gods are just men who have subjugated them, Darrow and Mustang lead Effy and her Valkyrie to overtake the Golds, who style themselves as Norse gods for the superstitious Obsidians. Aaliyah still refuses to follow Darrow's cause and denounces his group as heretics, so Effy kills her mother and the remaining Golds. Effy becomes queen and manages to rally all of the Obsidian tribes to join Darrow's crusade, leaving the polar region for the Sons of Ares stronghold with a wounded Cassius in tow. Cassius reveals that the Sovereign's secret stockpile of nuclear weapons has been stolen, likely by the Jackal. Darrow and Mustang seek an alliance with the Moon Lords of Jupiter, who are led by the self-declared sovereign of the Outer Rim, Romulus Al-Ra. Darrow's former friend Roque Alfabii is also there, in his position as the Imperator of Octavia Al-Lun's Sword Armada, to negotiate a truce with the Moon Lords. Darrow secures their support against Octavia when he manipulates Roque into confirming that she possesses planet-destroying atomic weapons to use against them if necessary. Darrow's forces are joined by those of the Moon Lords against Roque's Sword Armada and the fleet of Victra's brutal sister, Antonia aus Severus Julii. Using a tactical ruse, Darrow, along with Effy's Obsidians, board Roque's flagship. They overtake the ship, and the proud Roque, refusing to surrender, commits suicide. Antonia flees, but is soon captured by Victra. After the battle, Effy and her Obsidians instigate a riot among the Sons of Ares to execute their gold prisoners, having been enraged by the savagery of the Jackal. Sevro proves their hypocrisy in dramatic fashion by first hanging Cassius for killing Fitchner, and then hanging himself for his own multiple murders committed. Astonished, Effy cuts them both down before they die, and Sevro makes peace with the Obsidians. Then Sevro and Victra are married in the week thereafter. Darrow's Red Armada arrives at Luna to attack the Sovereign. Darrow, Sevro, and Mustang release Cassius, who swears to distance himself from the war until he suddenly grabs Sevro's Scorcher and shoots him to death. Cassius stuns Darrow and Mustang, sets Antonia free, and the duo take Darrow, Mustang, and Sevro's body with them to deliver to the Sovereign. They meet the Jackal, who coerces Cassius to sever Darrow's hand, and Octavia orders Aja to execute Antonia for her dishonorable conduct during the battle with the Moon Lords. Then she sentences Darrow to death in a live telecast. Cassius, however, kills the Sovereign's Praetorian guards and releases Darrow and Mustang. Darrow fatally stabs Octavia and incapacitates the Jackal. While Cassius and Mustang face Aja, Darrow revives the sedated Sevro. Aja is slain under their combined efforts. Then, the Jackal instructs Darrow to commit suicide under threat of detonating the nuclear bombs he has placed across Luna. Darrow then tears out the Jackal's tongue, while Mustang and Lysander direct both the Loyalists and the Rising fleets to fire upon the Jackal's flagship, which was firing the nukes. Nevertheless, 12 nuclear bombs go off, killing millions. With the support of Octavia's young grandson, Lysander, Mustang is able to take control as the new sovereign. She disbands the Senate and begins dismantling the color system and the tyrannical social infrastructure of the Golds. The Jackal is then publicly executed. Cassius, having made peace with Darrow and himself, takes off with Lysander to raise the boy in exile. Afterwards, Mustang reveals to Darrow the existence of their son, Pax, who was born while Darrow was presumed dead and had been secretly in the care of Cavix's wife. That's when Darrow vows to himself to create a better world for him and his family to live in.
Okay, so I just want to say for the record, at the end of this book, I had already read Morningstar, but I forgot exactly what the chain of events at the very end was. So what happened is I was reading it, and then Cassius shot Severo 6 times in the chest. 6 times, Pierce Brown.
6 times.
And then I called Effy immediately, and I was like,
Yeah. Oh my God.
Severo's not dead, is he? But like,
Because you couldn't remember?
I
couldn't remember. I
that's wonderful.
couldn't even. I was just like, I have to know this exact because I know Pierce Brown. He's not just going to be like, ta-da, he's fine. You know, he's going to drag it out and make me feel terrible for like 4 chapters. You know,
But
which
then
is
he didn't
exactly
really
what
do
he
that.
does. I mean, he kind of did that.
Well,
like,
yeah, but they didn't really make a big enough deal about it because I couldn't remember either. But then in the Fallen, they just kind of moved past it as a group pretty quickly, and I was like, okay, something's up here.
I did notice. So I've noticed something with Pierce Brown, and please correct me, Effy or Chad, if you think I'm wrong about this. But I've kind of noticed that when a plan is about to go absolutely bonkers, Pierce Brown kind of like reels in Darrow's more kind of like opinionated thoughts and feel. You know what I mean? Like he kind of makes everything a little bit more objective. And it's just like Darrow's just like literally saying all the things that are happening instead of saying what he thinks about them. And so I've kind of that's how I kind of knew, like, okay, something else is really up here, because Darrow isn't like, Cassius, you bastard, you killed my best friend. It was
right after agreeing that you were going to just distance yourself. I really do like it. I think I agree with everything you just said, but I really do like his kind of habit of not telling us the plan, even though everyone else knows the plan that's on the good guy's side. So we kind of get to experience the surprise as the enemy experiences it. And I think it's like a far more intriguing, like interesting, captivating way to tell a story.
It's really hard to do.
Knowing it. Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to do from a first person perspective when that person whose perspective you're reading knows the whole plan.
Right. In fact, made the plan.
Really, really difficult to do. What do you think about that, Effy?
Well, I think that's what's funny about it is this happened in Golden Sun and again several times in Morning Star, where how you're describing it, that Darrow knows the plan, but we're not in on the plan.
Right. Yeah.
But he also knows that they know the plan. So he has a backup plan, which we also don't know about. So there's like these like twists within twists that are like kind of whiplashy.
That's a good way of putting it, actually. And in what is my opinion, an experience or an enjoyable way, but I could see it being a little abrasive. Okay, Effie. As I said, I was going to begin every episode this way. I'm going to capitalize on your emotions, but do not feel that I am slighting them because I was crying a few times during this book. But I want to know, did you cry? And if so, when? And then if you didn't, what at least was like the lowest, most emotional point for you?
And what would make you cry?
And what would make you cry, you heartless piece?
No, it's funny because I didn't cry at all during Golden Sun. I don't think I can remember. Even though you pointed out, you were like, not even with Victra? And I was like, oh shit. That was horrible. No, for Morning Star, I only cried once, and it was when Ragnar died.
Yeah, I mean,
that was like the most brutal.
Yeah, Ragnar taking the blade out of his hands and grabbing his sister's hand and saying, live for more. Like, man.
It was just like sad because he died. It was meaningful, and the guy like still went out with a smile on his chest, being like, "For Valhalla, for my friends." You're just like, man.
Oh my god. I was mad at Pierce Brown for first he killed Pax, who was like mini Ragnar.
Right.
Yeah.
And then he killed Ragnar. Like, what the fuck?
I don't think he needed to kill Ragnar. I don't know.
No,
like that was a lot. That was excessive.
Yeah.
Ragnar believed in this rebellion and this cause more than most people involved, and he like understood it better than a lot of people. He was like the heart of it. Besides Darrow, everyone looked to Ragnar. Like it was depressing once he was dead.
I think it's silly that Ragnar fought. I mean, maybe it was just the blocking of that scene and kind of what was necessary, but Ragnar fighting Aja, no. That was never going to work. Like, Ragnar's way too big. Like, he's too slow. Like, Aja is like...
You can't put the brawler against this fast, dexterous one. It's like, no.
No, and it was just... Like, Ragnar totally could have taken Cassius, I think.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, and so
Cassius would have actually died.
And, and Darrow and Mustang probably could have taken Aja. So...
Well, I don't know.
You don't think so? I bet they could have.
I mean, knowing the way that Aja finally does die, it took 4 people.
It did. Death by 1,000 cuts.
She's a beastie. I mean, that's what her trainer, because her and Darrow shared the trainer, Lorne. Yeah, thank you. Is it Lorne or Lauren? Lorne. They shared Lorne, the trainer, and with one piece of advice he said was like, never fight Aja.
One of my questions is, it's not even really a question. It's just a notice that I had. It seems very convenient that Adrius, the Jackal, was like, well, I am going to use Sevro's gun. Wouldn't it be poetic if I use Sevro? And it's like, wow, really? You're falling literally. This is literally the exact thing they wanted you to do. Well, and you know me so well. I mean,
like, that's insane.
They put a blank in his gun so that it wouldn't kill Darrow. Like, it's like when, remember, that's what happened. I can only go with the text that,
how did they, like, that's so ridiculous.
It wasn't just one blank. It was several, wasn't it? Because wasn't several
probably a whole
shot
clip
with
just in case he decided to go 6.
Yeah, but then they reloaded it, right, with blanks or whatever. Or no, like there weren't even real bullets in the gun.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
That's what I'm saying.
the whole time.
Ever.
Yeah, so
which is a crazy foresight on their part, like tea leaves
to know that.
sure.
Yeah, it's not. I'm not saying there should never have been blanks in the gun or whatever, because they needed it for pretending Severo was dead. But banking on Adrius not only being the one to decide to kill Darrow, you know, it wouldn't have been Aja, it wouldn't have been Antonia, it wouldn't have been the Sovereign herself. The Sovereign wouldn't have had Lysander do it. None of that. It's they're banking on it being the Jackal, and not only that, the Jackal deciding to use Severo's gun. You know, like
that was the stretch.
That was the only part of the entire book where I was just like, really though, that's pretty lucky. That's exactly what you wanted to happen. But yeah, I don't know. Those are my thoughts.
It's weird that would be the plan too, because as it was happening, Darrow was actively surprised that the Sovereign allowed the Jackal not only to just be there, but to volunteer, and then said, yeah, go ahead and kill him. Like, the whole thing was a surprise to him. He was like, what is that? What's going on here? Why are they like colluding together? The whole thing was confusing, and yet he planned on it.
Maybe they didn't actually plan on Darrow being executed with Severo's gun. Maybe that was just a happy coincidence, and they just hadn't planned exactly how Darrow would get.
Then why would he have blanks
for Severo? Like,
he just didn't unload the whole clip of blanks.
Yeah, because like, you needed
why would they, if they didn't plan on it, then why would they put blanks in Severo's gun?
Well,
when they shot him,
because they had to shoot Severo with blanks.
Oh, for Cassius shooting him.
Yeah, exactly. So, like,
but did
maybe
Cassius shoot him with Severo's gun?
Yeah. Cassius takes Severo's gun and shoot. That was part of the plan.
I forgot that.
Yeah, the part of the plan that I am taking issue with was them still banking on that gun being used to murder Darrow.
Okay, no, you're right.
Darrow.
You're right. Yeah,
but now that I'm thinking about it, it's like, well, maybe they actually didn't plan that far ahead, and that was just a happy coincidence. But still,
one hell of a happy coincidence.
It was a pretty happy coincidence. Yeah,
because the alternative would have been just breaking out into a sword fight in the middle of it instead.
Right.
Like,
what's really funny about it though is that Darrow was no part of the plan had Darrow getting his hand cut off. Like, that was real. But I mean, what choice did Cassius have, right? I mean,
I know. I wonder if afterwards they were having a discussion. They're like, man, you really committed to that deceit. Like, maybe you could have committed like a little less hard, or like taken like my non-main hand or something. Like, because I think it was his right that he took, right?
Yeah. I kind of love that he was the one who cut it off, and that he didn't hesitate, because Darrow cut Cassius's arm off.
Yeah, he did.
And so he's like, yeah, bro, like,
like, hopefully all this goes to plan, but I'm still cutting your arm off.
Right.
Yeah. One thing that another thing I didn't super buy in this book is Cassius. So I have mixed feelings on Cassius. So on the one hand, I do agree with the kind of sentiment that Cassius, none of this is really his fault, and he hasn't really done anything that reprehensible in this entire situation. You know, he's kind of just been like a golden retriever guy like this entire time, just kind of
sitting beside while Darrow was tortured and then boxed in that little coffin was pretty bad.
That was bad for sure, but like, Cassius is, as far as the main cast of golds go, you know,
right,
like he's
right.
But I kind of understand that to a certain extent. I understand his and Darrow's relationship. For the most part, I get what's going on here, but I still think it's kind of silly that Darrow is so like forgiving. And here's my thought process behind it. Okay, so after the battle with Roke, Darrow decides that it's okay to murder thousands of Reds on the docks of, was it Ganymede?
I think it was
on those
Ganymede.
docks. He rationalizes it, and he says, "Well, this is just the way we got to do it. So that's war, baby." But then, and it's what his reasoning behind it is mostly, I'm going to nip this risk in the bud right now. Which is like, that is, I guess, fair, but he's not consistent with it when it comes to Cassius. You know what I mean? Like, Cassius, it's like, yeah, he's your bro, but like, if you're really on this kind of, if this is your track of mind, if this is your mindset, yeah, like, nip him in the bud. He would like just do it, and then obviously it ends up working out for everybody because, you know, the power of friendship.
Only exceptions are made in Darrow's mind if you know him personally. He's like, but my friends are my family, which is kind of my one problem with Darrow. Like, okay, his whole like love for Roke, where he's like, I loved him, and it was like, okay, Roke, his whole character I find annoying, and I find the relationship in Darrow's mind kind of annoying that he has seemingly with Roke, where he like is forgiving of him and like makes him to be this honorable poet, which like I guess he's a poet since when, but okay, whatever.
Yeah,
and then he's just like,
it's been a thing.
Has it been a thing?
It's
I don't know. I feel like in this one he was like the honorable poet, and it was like no, and it was like, dude, he didn't just. He wasn't like on the wrong side, and he wasn't like just at all. Like he literally betrayed you guys for the greater good or for the society to like keep the lower colors subjective. Like, no, I don't think that he was worthy of Darrow's love at all. I was just like Darrow dramatically sees some of Roke's blood flow over him. He's like, it was like a shard of my own reflection trapped in its red fingers, inwardly thinking that could have been him, but for a few decisions. Like he was a good man. Oh, a man who like had to die even though I loved him. And it was like, dude, no, this a-hole, like for everyone else, no. He like sweats blood for them. Oh yeah, and then Roke like doubles down on being on this sovereign side. He's like, no, I'm gonna fight for them, and then like become the leader of the I don't know. I just feel like he's not as good of a person as Darrow thinks, and Darrow's way too forgiving. Like that guy was a POS and deserved everything he got, and I think it was pretty like weak of him to commit suicide.
I tend to agree with Darrow's like affection for Roke. I understand that they spent a lot of time together, and it was like a lot of intimate time together in very intense traumatic situations in their childhood at the institute. Trauma bonded. And yeah, they trauma bonded hardcore in the institute, and then it carried over into the academy. Like they were there for a year or two or something. And so I understand that they spent a lot of time together, but how quickly he turned on him, how murdery he got so quickly without any remorse or really any hesitation. And then he had that like pretty fashy spiel with the Moon Lords when he was trying to get them on the sovereign side. He was like,
fashy.
yeah, he's like, excuse me, but like fascism is amazing and beautiful because we're gold, and like this is just who we are, of course. And he's just a bug. Like he was talking so much shit about Reds and Darrow and stuff. And then after that conversation, Darrow goes, when did I lose you? And it was like, bro, you should have lost him. Like, what? Oh my God.
You should have thrown him out with the garbage. Dude, it's funny that you use the word fashy because I have in my notes like, Darrow, he's a good man deep inside. Like, no, actually, from the surface all the way to his literal die on the hill deep level values, they were all super fashy and based on the superiority of a certain group simply because of the color they were born to and their access to body engineering. Like his literal last words were, I am the star in the night sky. I am the blade in the twilight. I am the god, the glory. I am the gold. Then decapitates himself. Like, yeah. Peace out, my guy. Yuck, out of here. Good riddance.
Yeah, Roke says, you know what I can do. You do not have a commander to match me. And when your ships burn, the knights of the core will pour into your cities at the head, flying columns, and fill the air with ash enough to choke your children. Yeah. Like, come on, man.
Yeah, like, he literally threatens to kill children.
That's pretty brutal. And well, like, so, okay, so...
And Darrow's like, why don't you like me anymore?
I think there's a couple things going on here. So I think maybe something that Brown is trying to do is a lot of what was going on in Golden Sun too. I mean, like a lot of these books are about like empathy, right? Misplaced empathy, but also like a lack of empathy in a lot of situations. And Darrow is really grappling with this for all three of these books, right? Yeah. He's trying to see where he fits on this empathetic line. Like, who is he supposed to, feel for? Who is he supposed to hate? Like, to what degree is he supposed to hate? What is he supposed to do with that hatred? You know, there's a lot of really confusing feelings going on here, but I think that's what's trying to be shown here. I do think it fumbles like a little bit just because of how hardcore Roke is. Like, Roke is showing absolutely zero remorse here, and I think that what's trying to be done, which I think is kind of succeeding, but basically the idea is that Roke is... Hang on, there's a real irony here because Roke says of Darrow is only who he is because of who is around him, right? And that's, I think, meant to be kind of like a jab at Darrow, but it's kind of ironic too, because Roke is only who he is because of the society that's shaped him this way.
Right.
And Darrow's trying to look at it through that prism.
Which you can't even overcome.
Right, but it kind of begs the question, like, is there a point of no return for somebody that you love when their ideals are such the opposite of yours, you know? And it's like, yeah, if he's talking about killing babies, maybe, you know, like,
Right.
like I don't know how bad you're really
kind of
supposed to feel about that.
It kind of brings me back to in book 2 when Lorne and Darrow kind of had their showdown where who did Lorne kill? That Darrow was like, no, he could have been
Tactus.
Tactus, yeah. And then at the end, Lorne was like, you know what? I was wrong. People can change. And then he's kind of proven right the next scene where Roke and the Jackal like betray them and take over. It's like some people can't come back from the edge, you know? And so that it was kind of reminiscent of that whole theme of like, yes, most people can change, but like some can't, you know?
Yeah. I don't know. That was a lot. That was a really intense scene, you know, like Roke taking his own life, because it just shows even more how really dedicated he was. Because Tactus was like, oh, you're going to forgive me? Then I can totally hang all this up. And even to a lesser extent, Thistle, before she's killed by Antonia, which we're definitely going to get to, by the way. We have to get to that part. But, you know, there are, and I think that's probably another thing that's giving Darrow pause, is that he's seen Gold's kind of like go back on this and reach an empathetic spot and change their minds about certain things, and he still is holding out hope for Roke, but Roke is far gone. Like Roke is like, deep in here.
Roke was first to talk smack when he had the head of what's his face revealed to him at the end of book 2.
Oh, Fitchner.
Fitchner. Yeah, he was like
he was just holding it.
Is revealed. He said something super racist to him, and then like revealed the head, and it was like, no, at that point, there's no like coming back. Like, no, man.
Yeah, Roke talking with Romulus and Darrow. I was kind of annoyed with Roke, you know, because, and I think we're supposed to be, obviously, but it's just his whole attitude is just like, man, come on, I want to keep being an authoritarian. Like, I was born for this. What the hell?
Like, but we are kind of gods, though.
Yeah, like, why is everyone getting in my way? Like, this sucks. This is so lame.
And Darrow, it's your fault that, oh gosh, I can't remember her name. Who died that in the beginning of that book? They were into each other. Quinn died, and he never like that was on Darrow in his mind, and like he blames all of the bad things on Darrow, and it's like, man, like you have some personal responsibility for your part in deciding to like go along with them.
But we have to remember that the Golds, especially Roke in his position, you know, and not by position, but by position I mean the state of his birth, the height of his birth, you know, the quality of his birth, you could say, if you were a Gold. But we have to remember that Roke literally cannot see where Darrow is coming from, right? At no point in this entire situation, in all of these books, has Roke been like, oh, I guess we are kind of subjugating people and we are kind of oppressing. That line of thinking has never happened with Roke.
Well, I mean, he says it, and then it's like, and that's the way it should be,
right? But he's not. But he's not taking the line of reasoning that's bad. Yeah, he's taking. He's saying like, no, this really is the way that it should be, and I'm ready to kill myself for it, which is
and
like
your children.
I mean, yeah, and your children. Like, damn. And so I think that maybe I think Darrow's not necessarily reconciling with like his friend not changing his mind as much as he's reconciling with the fact that he's not going to, and so you know what I mean. And to be fair, Darrow is just as strong-willed about his beliefs as Roke is. So I think that's the kind of like mirror image that Darrow is seeing there, you know, in the blood fingers and stuff, like, right. I think that's Darrow understanding that Roke was never going to come to his side because he felt just as intensely about his feelings as Darrow did. So that's my thoughts on it.
I agree with you on that front, you know, and I think I think the biggest difference, the separation, comes when they're both at the height of emotional reactions to things. Darrow allows his brain to kind of come back into play, and sometimes he'll think things out, as opposed to Roke just reacting. Like when Roke was trying to convince the Moon Lords to join him in the Sovereign, he like basically his last like final ditch Hail Mary effort was to be like, and we will burn your children, like, and just basically ice your your planet. And it was like, as soon as he said that, after the guy displayed so much affection for his kids and like the meaning of family, it was like, done, bro, you're done. That was obviously an emotional thing, not a tactic.
It was well played by Darrow.
Yeah, it was. I bet you that was Mustang's idea.
That scene was really stressful to read. That was like one of my least favorite scenes to read. The entire situation from like when they landed on that moon to when they left, I hated it. This new kind of gold, because I had read 2.5 books of a certain type of gold, and now we have these moon golds, these outer moon golds, and they're all like even more alien and even somehow more gold. Like their honor system and just everything, the way that they spoke was so eerie. And so
very separated.
Yeah.
I have a question for both of you. I want to hear your guys' opinion on whether or not you think she was right to do this or wrong to do this. But Mustang's waiting for so long before revealing that her and Darrow actually have a child together.
I thought it made sense. His mom was saying that right now the Reds need a sword. They need a warrior. They don't need a dad. And so if he knew he had a kid, it would have like slowed him down. It would have made him think about even one more obstacle, one more thing that he cared about in like all of these instances. And it could have like caused the hesitation that caused a big mistake. And so he needed to just literally not know or even know a hint of its existence so that he could focus on the task at hand. I thought it was like kind of a good move.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm all for, you know, honesty and transparency. You know, if I had a kid, I would really love to know that I had a kid, but I'm also not heading up a revolution that's in control of billions of people's lives. So
you're not currently father to like all the low colors.
Well, and my point being, my point being that him knowing that wouldn't have done anything. It wouldn't have changed anything. It would, you know what I mean? Like it would.
If anything, to Effie's point, it would have prevented him from.
It would have made things worse. They were in a situation where, like, nothing. If something's not going to benefit that particular situation, that needs to stay off the table. Like only specific stuff needs to be happening right now. I mean, it sucks because, like, I would have felt not necessarily betrayed, but I would have felt annoyed probably that information had been like kept from me, but because there is kind of like there's that feeling. I mean, I kind of felt when I found out about that, I was like, yeah, but they don't know that that's how he would have reacted,
right?
You know?
And what's more, it's exactly what Darrow did to Roke at the beginning of book 2, right? He removed his ability to make the decision by like injecting him with like, you didn't just make you made the decision for me. I didn't even get the chance to make the decision one way or the other. You didn't even give me the trust enough to like think. I would be very much mad probably for like a month or two.
But they had the right reasons.
Yeah, no, I think they were right in the long run. But as Darrow, I would have probably not been so agreeable.
I think once you saw little baby Pax, though, you'd be like, oh, whatever. That's cool.
That's true.
Little baby Pax.
I thought
Pax.
They named his ship and the kid. Like, man, so much Pax memory.
I
thought it could have been named Ragnar. Like, he didn't get any memory, like ships or children.
I know.
Named
Darrow
after
didn't get to name his kid.
Well, Ragnar was alive when that kid was born.
Totally.
Oh yeah.
So
true. Huh.
she didn't think to name, you know.
Well
but
defended.
I thought that it was actually really touching that she even had that child, because like she was saying she held off telling Darrow because she wanted to know his true motives. She wanted to see who he really was and what he was all about and what his goals with this revolution were, to know if he was a builder. Yeah. But I thought it was just interesting because the last time we see her with Darrow, she is pretty dissatisfied. She's pretty angry and like confused, and she feels betrayed, and she feels so many things. And then she like finds out she's pregnant, knows it's his, and keeps it, and like has it. I don't know. And that's like, because it's really rare for golds and reds to have children together. So it's like, that's one of the very few instances that that's ever happened. I think it's really sweet that she, even without knowing all of that stuff about Darrow that she wanted to know so that she could make him a father, she still kept him. I don't know. I thought that was
Right.
really sweet.
I wonder if that baby will like look anything. Hopefully, it takes after Mustang because like she has like like, and I don't mean to sound like awful when I say this. Of like, I'm gonna sound like a Nazi kind of, but like she has the better genes of the two, right? Like the Golds have been like bred over thousands and hundreds of years to be like the huge. Even Severo, he's like seen as like a runt, right? He's like the rat of them all because he is a mixture of gold and red. And so I wonder if Mustang and Darrow's kid will also be tiny in stature.
Yeah, I wonder. I mean, I really like the idea that Darrow. These first 3 books are in first person present tense. Then I just started Iron Gold, and those are in third person. Oh no, they're in first person as well, but there's different point of view chapters. But I like the idea that this is all Darrow telling his experience to his son. Like after the fact.
Yeah. Wait, the trilogy is Darrow telling his son?
Yeah, Darrow telling Pax, his son, all the things that had happened up until the point of the events of Iron Gold and Dark Ages. That's at least how I'm looking at it now that I've had a chance to kind of get into Iron Gold and, little Pax.
That sounds right.
But it could be wrong. I don't know. I just like looking at it like that.
I'm very curious as to what will happen in that book. But before we get into new predictions and stuff, maybe you guys can help clear up something. So the one thing that I didn't really understand in the story was just randomly the ship that pursues Darrow, Mustang, and Ragnar is the ship that Aja and Cassius are on. Like, did they know that they were on? Like, how did they even find that ship? Like, all of a sudden they're just like in pursuit.
They just knew.
Yeah, they were just.
Cassius
did they think that Darrow was on that ship?
Bro on that ship.
Yeah, it was bro connection.
bro connection.
Like my bro is on that ship right now.
There is a reason for it. I can't remember exactly specifically what it was, but I did think it was funny that like they both shot each other just enough to damage each other to like land in the snow, like crash land in the snow. Like one didn't blow up, but there's like ships constantly blowing up all the time.
It's like every time that he comes into a meeting, it's like, oh, Cassius and Mustang. Like, oh, there's a ship pursuing up Cassius and Aja. It's like, oh, that's a lot of coincidences,
No, I was just waiting for them to kiss finally. Darrow and Cassius, like the romantic tension.
Say, when Darrow did that to Mustang, I was so stoked, but then you went a different direction. I'm with
the sexual tension between Cassius and Darrow over the last 3 books.
Oh my god,
like
for real though,
insane.
I would have never thought to put it in those words, but now that you say it, you are 100% right. There is absolutely some sexual tension between those two.
No, the way that they had a very intimate firelight drink together, even though they were like, I hate you. I hate you too. But then they sat there and reminisced and like was like, I love you, bro. I love you too.
Yeah, dude.
I think it would have been a lot more impactful if Cassius and Darrow had actually hooked up in the first book. I'm not saying that I'm not saying you couldn't have that intensity platonically. I think you can for sure, but I think it would have made me believe it a little bit more. That, because like maybe they had like this weird. Because like maybe they had this fling in the first book, and then Darrow kind of moved over to Mustang, but then Cassius slept with Mustang.
I'm glad that we didn't get a love triangle though. The story, the story didn't need a love triangle, especially a confusing one.
I agree with you that I typically don't really like love triangles, but
this one would have been cool.
But I do think this one would have worked because of the way that Darrow interacts with Cassius. You know what I mean? Like Darrow treats Cassius like he can't live without him.
He's his ex-lover for sure.
Yeah. And so I think that
and how much they hate each other. Like the intensity with which they hate each other sometimes is a little too much for what's like caused it.
I don't want to discount how powerful a platonic friendship can be. Obviously, that's a thing.
For sure.
But I also think Darrow and Roke should have hooked up too. Like I think I really do. I think everybody should have just when they were all about to die in the institute, everybody was fucking each other.
Absolutely,
they're all like supermodels. Like they should have all been. Yeah, I don't know.
They were all fucking.
They're like they're all killing each other.
Like supermodel teenagers about to die at any moment. Like I would be going crazy out there in the forest.
Gross orgies.
Yeah, the fact that there were only like a few like weird sexual escapades happening.
Mainly like
most
unconsensual.
unrealistic part about the whole series, in my opinion.
Yeah,
I agree,
not
actually.
enough sex. Not enough sex between
Not
these
enough
goals.
sex. They're
Okay,
also
so,
stressed out too. Jeez.
Well, I will say though, to conclude the romance dalliance we've had in this conversation, I really, really loved it. Like one of my high points, probably one of the top 3 highest points in the books for me was when Mustang was like, "All right, see you later," and then walks away, and Daryl was like, "No," and then he strides after her, grabs her, and kisses her. I was like,
Yeah.
"Yes,
There
finally."
you go.
Yeah, I wrote it down. Let me find where it is. Here we go. Mustang says goodbye to him and be careful, and then is like, "What's the point of all this if you die on me?" And then Daryl runs after her, spins her around, and kisses her. The exact quote is, "Not a delicate kiss, but a hungry one, where I grab her head and feel the woman beneath the weight of duty." I was like, "Yeah,
Beneath the weight of duty.
yeah, feel that woman beneath the weight of duty, Daryl."
Speaking of relationships, is it just me, or did Severo and Victra just kind of fall out of the sky?
I'm so glad you brought that up.
Really? Okay, yeah. 'Cause
Yeah.
I'm fine with it. I don't
It
think
was
it's
slowly well done, but like,
was it
was
though?
weird.
Like,
Was
did
it
I miss
though?
something?
No, I
No.
felt the exact same way. I was like weirded out when it started happening, and then
No,
I was
they've been
like,
into
"That's
each other
gonna
from the
stop
beginning.
happening, right?" And then
I
it
thought
got
Severo
like,
liked Quinn.
yeah,
He did, but him and Victor have always been like, "What up, what up?" Like always like looking at each other sideways.
She
Always.
I mean,
calls
they
him
are
goblin.
They're both goblinish. you
Yeah,
know?
but she flirts
Victra's-
by punching. She makes fun of you. That's how she makes. That's how she flirts. You know.
I think
So
it
they're
makes
both
sense. It just wasn't.
aggressive.
Yeah, her love language is insulting.
Yeah. So
You know, when she walks up and like
So,
hits you on the
yeah,
playground, that's
I
how you know
guess
when she's into you.
Yeah.
It just seemed so out
them
of
getting
nowhere.
married was a little out
Them
of the
getting
blue.
married.
Yeah,
Them
they
getting
seem like not
married.
marriage people, and like it is an odd coupling. I'll definitely give you that because like Severo is never described as being attractive. In fact, he's the opposite. He's like the little tiny goblin. Like he like likes to stink and be gross, and she's like very classy and like is
She's like the
beautiful
hottest one
and,
there.
Yeah,
He's like the stable boy, and she's the princess.
yeah. I, think
I
you're right.
mean,
It gives
don't
her,
even
like,
tell me that's not hot. Don't even.
it's
don't
naughty
even
for her to
try.
be with him.
Don't
you know?
even try. Yeah.
Bomb boy.
One thing I really love about Pierce Brown is his usage of curse words in the most strategic places. And my favorite in this entire book was when Severo wakes up and just yells the word fuck, and then that's the end of the chapter.
Yeah.
Wow. Like he's just like fuck. And it was just like I was listening to it on audiobook, and the way that Tim Gerard Reynolds narrated it and the way that it just like it
Oh,
just
man.
wraps up that whole chapter and then starts and there's so many emotions going on because you're like, Severo's alive, oh my god, and you're like fuck, and he's like fuck, and then and then the chapter ends, and it's just more chaos after that. I think that because curse words in books it's difficult, right? Like you don't want to
Very.
use too many, but you also don't want to like never use them because that's not really how people in this situation would talk. Like people would, even if it's made up curse words, even like Brandon Sanderson like makes up his own curse words and uses
Totally.
them from time to time.
Gosh.
I like Bloody Damn a lot.
I like Gory Damn more personally.
Gory damn sounds better with like a British accent, but the way
Yeah,
that Tim
gory
Gerard
damn.
Reynolds says "bloody damn" is just like it's like there's a hint of the rebellion woven within it.
Maybe, yeah.
It
I like.
inspires me.
What's the other one that they use?
Bloody damn. Oh, the one that the Golds use. It's
Well, they use so there's a lot of slang in this book in these books. So there's like Gory Damn and Bloody Down, and then there's also Are You Keen? No, Are You
Prime.
Prime? Yeah,
Prime. That's right. Yeah, and I
Yeah,
think that's
not
from the
Keen.
Primus being the leader.
Yeah,
Whatever
like,
you Prime.
I'm Prime, and then the like Scorchers, for pistols. Which are they just really called Scorchers, or is that like slang for pistols?
I think
I
they
don't
were called
know.
Scorchers. I think that was like specific. They're specific.
that really
type
is
of
what they're
gun. Yeah,
called.
like
Okay, cool.
like a 45 or something.
Like
But
in
yeah, I think
Halo.
the gold slang was like gory hell, gory well, which is weird, and then gory damn. Okay, so if maybe you guys can help me understand this. I'm missing a piece of something here that we learned that Mustang's password to her data pad is L17L6363, and Darrow was like, "What?" And they have like a little moment, and Mustang grins, but like that is meaningless to me. And like I tried converting it to Leet, which is like the video game language using numbers as letters, but like it didn't make any sense then. So like, do you guys know the significance of that string of numbers and letters?
No, I think I just skipped right over that. I
And
was
she just
I
like,
don't
and
know
he
what
like looks
that
at her in
means.
surprise, and she grins. They have a moment about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
usually if there's three of us, we can figure something out. But I
I
think
Oh my
that
know, and I
god,
was
do we
like,
have to
every one of
Google
us.
it?
We
I'm gonna
missed-
Google it right
all of
now.
us missed that. Yeah.
No, yeah, I read it. I remember being like, what does that mean? But I wasn't
like,
curious
whatever.
enough to like look it up. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
just like
totally.
whatever.
Maybe it's something from the Institute.
Probably
Yeah, I would imagine it's probably something from the Institute.
because those were the good old days.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's his name from the mines. They're
What
named
the
numbers.
fuck?
And it's his family's number name. Wow.
I would not have remembered
Crazy.
that.
That's actually weird.
That's so impressive that she was able to remember his. Oh, she probably looked it up, maybe. But yeah,
Maybe.
that was
So
his
cringy.
designation
It's
for
thoughtful.
Darrow. So it was
That's
his
not
name
cringy,
in
it's
like
thoughtful.
it was his number. Can you imagine though? If, like
Effie's
you
like,
learned that
wow.
like your wife's
Wow.
password was like the number that you had like etched on your arm in the Jew camp. Like that would
Yeah.
I'd be like, no, like I don't want to remember any part of that. Why are you using that as your password? That's so
Yeah.
messed up.
I
It's
love
so
you.
sweet.
Yeah, it's not sweet at all. It's like reminding me of my worst time in my life where I was literally not even recognized for my name.
Not even human.
Yeah. That's what you chose to remember?
One of the questions that I had was, what was the most surprising / interesting plot twist for you? And what was the least effective plot twist for you?
The least effective one for me was probably the Sovereign deciding to kill Antonia. Like, I think that was meant to be kind of like this.
Oh, was that
Thing-
considered a plot twist?
I mean, I feel like it was for Antonia, for sure.
Yeah, I feel like she
You
was
know,
like,
I mean,
yeah,
like-
I'm getting sur-
Like,
we're getting-
I mean,
getting a lot live.
I don't remember expecting that at all, really, the first time I read it. I kind of remembered it this time around, but I remember being kind of surprised about it. But I was just like, wow, somebody should probably do that.
Yeah,
You know,
I was
like
relieved.
Yeah, she was pretty terrible. But I mean, like the best one, obviously, I mean, in my opinion, is Severo not actually being. He was shot 6 times in the chest. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that. Like that is definite. But there is some foreshadowing to that though, because Mustang does like requisition some special armor, like in like a throwaway line of like one part of the book. So that is like a thing. But
I need to
it's-
say something about Severo's death.
Sure.
Okay, so this is something that I was actually kind of impressed with. So when Evan was at work the other day, he was listening to Morningstar. He was finishing the book, and he gets to the part where Severo is shot 6 times point blank in the chest, and there's blood everywhere, and he dies. And he called me, and he sounded so upset. Evan was like, "Did Severo really die?"
Had you
Really
finished the book
die?
already?
And so I actually hadn't even gotten to the part where Severo was shot.
rough.
But I
when he
thought
said
you
that,
were. Yeah.
I
thought-
know. He thought I was farther along in the book than I was. And so when Evan asked that and he sounded so upset, I got upset. But I was like, I didn't want to upset Evan. I wanted to reassure him. And so I quickly Googled it.
I ruined the
Because I
twist
needed
for
to-
Effie.
That
Because I
was
needed
sucked,
to
but she
know.
decided to be the bigger person in the relationship and
Yeah.
cheer you up.
I
What
must
a
have sounded
move.
so
What a
upset.
heart
You
like-
sounded
have.
so sad because Severo's your favorite guy. He's your
Yeah,
guy.
he
and
is.
so I was
And I
like, I
couldn't
need to make
remember.
sure. And I quickly found out that he didn't actually die, and I was relieved, and you
That
were
is
relieved.
Some straight partner points right there. Wow.
Yeah,
Wow, I'm
but
impressed.
What's funny
Keeper.
is later
Keeper move.
on, when I finally got to that part myself, I was still upset and shocked, and I was still worried.
Yeah.
It was so like it
Like
was
the internet
so well
lied.
written. It was
Yeah.
just so well written. Like his death scene was so intense that I was like, "Holy shit! Does he actually die?" Like it
Yeah.
was.
6
that whole
times in the
part,
chest.
yeah.
Like I can
Yeah.
picture Pierce Brown like 3 times? No. 4
No,
times?
4
No.
times 5 is too
Let's
even.
do 6 times in the chest. Like that's
Yeah.
Oh man.
It was too
like
much.
there is no matter like any gold, like any obsidian, you know what I mean? Like that's
Yep.
there's no coming back from that. So the only way that it would have worked is if all the bullets were fake.
Yeah.
Right? And when you're reading that scene, you're like, there's no reason for you to believe that the
No.
bullets are fake. There's never
We
been a
don't even know
mention
about
of like,
fake bullets.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
they'd never
So-
had them before.
Okay, I
Yeah.
want to answer your question about least and most.
Yes.
The least effective part I already talked was Roke being like the noble poet and like not the super piece of irredeemable shite that he actually is.
which I still kind of take issue
bloody
with.
Damn
but
core.
yeah.
I think anyway. And Darrow being so sad that I was like, whatever, not feeling it, not cool. Darrow, get out of your head. Like, stop romancing this person and realize that he was a piece of actual human garbage. And then the thing that I liked the most, maybe not the most, but that I found was like a helpful and realistic thing that forward the relationship between characters was the little spat at the beginning between Darrow and Severo of having kind of like their little like power, like who's in control actually.
Yes.
And Severo's just like running this like revenge, like destruction campaign. And Darrow's like, no, it needs to be like a rebuild. Like, and then really it turns out that Severo like cries to him, is like, oh, I've had so much pressure on my shoulder. I don't even want this position. And so he kind of gets freed by that conversation. The fact that they had to physically fight in order to like come back. It was just so like bro-y and lovely. I like that a lot. And I like that it was short.
And I think it was building up too. You know, you could kind of, and I can see it from Severo's perspective though too. I mean,
for sure.
like Severo has been leading this entire situation, this whole campaign for a year without Darrow. Busts Darrow out of prison. Darrow's all messed up, and then Darrow comes back in and is just like, "All right, so everything I say goes."
Right.
Severo's just like, "Wait a minute, dude. I'm Ares. Like, when I say I want to blow stuff up, we're gonna blow stuff up." And it sucks because, like, Darrow was 100% right in that situation. Like, they shouldn't have blown anything up. Like, I thought Severo was being pretty obtuse. Like, Quicksilver was giving a lot of very easily verifiable information to show that he really was who he was saying he was. And Severo was just like, he's full of shit. We should blow this whole place up.
Yeah, right, but he was only saying that to back up the fact that he knows what he's doing. Because that's like his whole problem, right? Is he was so insecure. People often will argue the things that they're most insecure about themselves about. And he was so insecure about his own leadership ability, which came out later. It was like, I feel this weight upon me. I don't know what I'm doing. And so I think that was him just like arguing for his own insecurity. You know, he had that conversation with himself so many times. He was like ready with the response to it.
And it was very astute of Darrow to notice that that was how he would have acted a year prior. You know, the way that Severo was acting. And I'm not saying that, like, Darrow was in, like, a healthier mindset or anything, but I think that Darrow is better equipped at this juncture to lead this revolution because of the things that he's gone through and learned.
Right.
Whereas Severo is still kind of a one-track mind the way that Darrow was in Golden Sun. Because, I mean, Golden Sun was all about making mistakes, right? Like biting off way more than you could chew, because Darrow was then tortured for an entire year. But
and remembering to do things for the right purpose, I think, was a big theme in that as well.
And it didn't make Darrow meek or anything, you know? I mean, it didn't like mess with Darrow's resolve to be tortured for a year, but I think it gave Darrow a lot of time to kind of reflect and think about everything that had gone wrong and why it had gone wrong, and like the way that he really needs to approach all of this and build after tearing things down. And you know, and I think that's like the way that Darrow is in Morningstar is a lot of his reasoning behind how he treats Cassius, how he treats Roke. You know, like I don't know if Golden Sun Darrow would have spared Cassius and tried to get Roke to come over to his side. You know, like Morningstar Darrow would. And Severo took a little bit longer to get there, you know?
Yeah, speaking of weird turns of Severo's character, my least effective, least favorite twist was when the Obsidians decide to riot and kill all the golds because they saw Darrow's uncle die.
That was kind of silly.
Yeah, I was like, why is this happening at all? Like that whole sequence was such a mess. Like even like editing wise in the book, there was a part at the beginning of the chapter where he's like laying out how terrible it is. And it's like, these people are rioting, they're hanging the golds, and they have Mustang. And then like 2 paragraphs later, he's like, where's Mustang? Who has her? Where are they? And it's like, they have her. Like, but then, so it's like it leads to Cassius being hung, and then Severo runs
that part
up,
was a little weird.
sacrifices himself.
I think Pierce Brown wanted Severo to backflip with a noose around his neck, you know, which was a really cool visual.
But so unnecessary. Like,
I agree entirely.
And also, can Cassius die? Like, is there anything that can kill that man?
Yeah.
He was shot with an arrow in the neck.
Yeah.
And then shortly after, hung for a while. And he was fine.
He's certainly the most plot armorist for sure.
Yeah,
but yeah, that whole sequence, Severo's speech, all the rioting, that whole mess. I was like, this could have just not been in here at all, because it actually didn't affect anything. The Obsidians go right back to trusting everyone. Cassius doesn't die. Severo doesn't die. It was like that whole thing could just be lifted out.
I think what it was it was a way to kind of foreshadow the fact that Cassius, we needed some sort of inciting event to make it so that Cassius would start warming to this cause, and if not the cause, then not warming to the other side of the cause. You know what I mean? So Severo forgiving Cassius was probably kind of a little kickstart into Cassius being on board with betraying the Sovereign and stuff like that, you know? Because Severo, like, forgiving Cassius, if not forgiving, then forgetting or whatever, you know? I don't know if Severo's ever going to really forgive Cassius, but Severo doing that, you know, meant a lot to Cassius, and therefore Cassius is this much more open to Darrow talking to him over whiskey, Lagavulin. They have a bottle. Somehow they have a bottle of Lagavulin, which I guess
from
like Lagavulin is still
so
a company
old.
in like 750 years. Like,
dude, at one point,
it's like 1,000 years old.
Yeah, it's like a brand right now. Like,
what does
so
Victra
funny.
do? She quotes. Victra says "Bye, Felicia" at one point, and it's like, really, you think she knows like some slang or like a meme from like the early 19th century? Like hundreds of years later, she drops a literal "Bye, Felicia." I was like, nope, not feeling it.
I set the book down. And got lunch after that, because I was like, what did he just do?
Yeah, I would have felt the same. I was just like, man, no.
What is "Bye, Felicia"? What is
in the
that?
middle of one of like the most intense battles? She goes, "Bye, Felicia." Like,
you never heard that before?
No, I've never heard that in my life.
It's from that one movie.
Yeah, it's from
Ice Cube.
It's with Ice Cube, and it's from what is the movie?
Friday?
Yeah, it's Friday. Yes, it's Friday.
I
and
love
they're like
Friday.
This like
It's a short.
Felicia.
It's a short part.
Quoted Friday in this book.
Yeah, I mean, it was a cool quote. It's like funny that he put that in there, but it was like
I thought the word Felicia was weird. I was like, who is Felicia?
Yeah, it's like, what? That's not the name of her sister, and she "Bye, Felicia's" her, and I was like, what? That's too modern day. Like, you can't use like a modern day thing. Like, I don't know.
He should have had Severo say, "You got knocked the fuck out."
Yeah, something.
I wanted to talk about what my favorite kind of twist, like plot twist, was.
Let's hear it.
Because I talked about my least favorite, which was the wreck of Severo hanging himself. But my favorite sequence of the whole book was, I mean, I hated to read that Ragnar died, but his death, it was so sad, but so beautiful.
Yeah.
And so touching.
It's like the best death in the whole series.
Literally, like, and that's how you knew he was really dying, and he wasn't going to come back, is that it took forever. But then we go right into meeting Effy and the Valkyrie, and we go and meet Ragnar's mom, and that lady, that whole sequence with Ragnar's mom, I'm getting chills. Ragnar's mom and the Valkyrie and the Obsidian, everyone just like listening to Mustang and Darrow do their thing, which usually works. They usually just walk into a place, they do their little thing, and then everyone's on their side. And Ragnar's mom goes, "No."
Yeah. Even after they go kill the gods.
Yeah. And then an even bigger twist was Effy just cuts her mom's head off. She said, "Okay," and killed her. It was so startling and so perfect.
I agree.
Beautiful.
I think that the part on the ice, with the exception of like, both ships crashed and they just happen to have all of our main characters on two, you know, like that was like a little weird, but like everything after that was really, really good. Like Ragnar dying. Darrow and Mustang show up, they try their best, but no one's listening to them. And then they go murder a bunch of golds. There's like, here we go murdering some golds. Like, all right, just everybody hang tight. We're gonna go murder some of your gods real quick.
Right.
We'll come back. And then even then, Alia, which is Ragnar's mom, what do you think was up with that though? Like, why do you think Alia was just that? Like,
I think Alia was a neoliberal about that. She's like, I hear you. I hear what you're saying, but it would actually be better for me if we didn't.
Yes, that's the reason. Yeah, she says like their rulership, they're the ones who put me in power.
Yeah.
So
Right,
I stay in power if I keep under their regime.
Yeah, she's like, yeah, it's super cringe that what they're doing to us, but also like I have it pretty good.
Yeah, exactly. She was at the top, so like,
Yeah.
you know.
So what do you think made Effy chop her mom's head off? Do you think it was seeing Ragnar die?
And that they had been lied to, and that her mom knew.
Yeah,
And
it was
okay
that
with
was
it.
Yeah,
it was the
totally.
betrayal
Like, no.
and knowing that like in order for the people to be freed, that
Yeah.
like that's what needed to happen, and also just like the way that their society works, and also that the mom had gone once again a person who is beyond redemption. She's never going to come back, and this is what needs to happen so the
Even Ragnar knew.
Obsidians can move
Like
forward.
beautiful, big-hearted Ragnar was like, "You got to kill my mom."
Yeah, she's
yeah.
not going to listen to you.
You gotta kill my mom.
Kind of in connection with Effy, but not totally in connection with Effy. The part where Darrow blows up the docks on Ganymede, I kind of want to talk about that. I know that I already kind of touched on that a little bit, but first of all, since we were already talking about Effy, I really liked that Brown showed Seffi's reaction to it. That was a really smart thing to do because Effy has seen some shit. Like Effy has seen so much death and destruction, but nothing on this scale. Like this was outrageous, the amount of people that Darrow just murdered, right? And I mean, really though. But like, I wanted to ask you guys though, do you think it was a good idea, like objectively, for Darrow to do that? With the way that everything was laid out, do you think it was smart of him to take that?
Objectively, yes.
Okay, I disagree, but I want to hear your
Like
interpretation.
for the strategy, what he was making a pact with the devil when he made the pact with what was his name? Romulus. In order to use Romulus's army in order to use this fleet to take out the Sovereign's fleet, because he knew that he basically the deal that they made was like, we'll overthrow the inner world, but you guys get the outer. Plan is to like still rule and do your own thing, and he knew that if he allowed them to continue, they would be armed and ready. They would be his next enemy. So he was just getting ahead of it and being like, if I do this, it'll weaken them to the point of them not being able to resist. And he was basically neutering a huge barrier between him and his ultimate success right away. By doing a brutal thing, it's like one of those sacrifice 100 to save 1,000 sort of questions that like only kings can really contend with. But I don't know if morally if it was the right move, but strategically it certainly was.
So I kind of disagree. I really see where you're coming from, and maybe it'll prove to have been a really good idea on Darrow's part. But I think that he's really discounting the Gold's respect for force. Like really, because if Darrow won against Roke with sheer numbers and strategy. Like, I just don't...
He didn't. He was using Romulus. And his...
I agree, but they still won the battle, right? I mean...
Yeah.
Like
but I bet you
I don't think it was set
Outworlders
up...
would see him as, like, weak or something when he took over the Sovereign and jump in and take him with their power. He needed them neutered.
Maybe. I think that Romulus would have been such a good ally if Darrow... Because, like, I think taking the chance that Romulus finds out that it was actually Darrow... You know what I mean? Like, is more dangerous than...
Well, he did know even.
No, yeah, he knew.
Oh,
He
no,
knew.
you're totally right. He really
knew.
did. Yeah, he did.
During that conversation, it was one of
no, I
those
forgot
things
about that.
where
You're
he
right.
was
They
like,
both knew. So, which to your
Yeah.
point, you might be kind of right there, but I don't think that Romulus was ever going to be like the Telemonuses, where he could be like
No.
converted to the greater idea of it all.
No.
Like he had his own like sense of honor and righteousness about like how he raised his family, which we kind of resonated with. But at the end of the day, he was still a gory damn Gold who believed that he should be ruling the lower colors, and he was going to need to be put down in order for the.
Yeah, no, he was literally
Yeah, I think
using.
I
He was
agree with you
using the
guys, yeah.
Rising to help his own shit,
Yeah.
and so then he would have just wiped them out later.
No,
And
I think
so,
I
yeah.
agree. Yeah, I was a
Yeah.
little on the fence about it, but I think I agree with you. I mean, it's
But
still...
I don't know if I agree
terrible.
with. Sorry. I don't know if I agree with Darrow's decision to kill everyone on the docks. That was rough, man. Like killing so many.
And that's why before I said like he seems so ready to kill countless like low colors, but when it comes to Cassius, you know, like it's like
if you know Darrow, that's the place to be.
I know, yeah. If you're buddies with, if you have ever been in the same campfire light as Darrow, if you've ever thrown spears at fish with Darrow,
right, totally should have hooked up with him a million times with Darrow.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, one thing I do want to ask you guys about was, do you think that, there was an interesting thing that Romulus says that is like in their culture, he doesn't let their children watch the Hollows, which is basically their version of TV, before 12, as why should they be allowed to listen to the opinions of others before they have made opinions of their own? Do you guys think that's a smart way to raise a child, allowing their mind room to form their own opinions based off their own observations and studies, than to hear others that might flavor their own formation of opinions, but also the doing so leaves them ignorant of current events and cultural memes and ideas?
I think I agree mostly with the sentiment. I would say I don't have kids. Like I wouldn't, if I had kids, they wouldn't be watching network news stations at like 11 years old, you know, like, cause I don't even watch that shit. No, but I think, the sentiment is pretty cool. Like, you know, why let their opinions be informed when they haven't even gotten to an age where they can form them themselves. But like, I don't know, it's kind of ironic because like you're the one saying that, you know what I mean? So you're kind of doing that.
Yeah, he's the one forming their opinions.
But like, I mean,
it's the prerogative of a parent.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's like someone's going to, so it should probably be. I think that's probably a safe bet. I mean, I think that our news is probably a little bit more chaotic,
and not just news, but like the entertainment media too. He was saying all of
that's
it.
what he says. Yeah. I think I would still like. I mean, obviously, none of us are parents, and if you're a parent listening right now, then please excuse our ignorance. But like, I mean, I would say letting kids watch like a certain amount of TV kind of makes sense in like a social aspect. You know what I mean? Just like kids going to public school and like kind of like getting a feel for like the cadence of conversation and like what we socially accept and don't and stuff like that.
But like Romulus, I'd want to control it.
Right. Yeah. I think, I don't know. I'm not a parent, so it's like really difficult for me to answer that question. I have no idea. Yeah. Yeah.
Generally, I agree with the sentiment of restricting the flow of information to them, but at the same time, you don't want them to grow up completely blind or unaware or ignorant of certain things. And so, I kind of think controlling the flow is the way to go. But again, like you said, I don't have kids, so who knows?
If you're raising your kids to be like warrior gods, then I guess like
keep them focused.
Yeah, like I mean, they're like Spartans in that sense, where they start killing bears when they're 6 years old and stuff. And maybe I wouldn't let them watch Looney Tunes, but I do. I want to say one of the parts that I found in this book to be the most heavy hitting and like really got my heart going was the part where right before Darrow rips out the jackal's tongue, which was fucking crazy. But before that, when the jackal is killing millions of people every couple seconds with those nukes, wow, that was wild. Like that was I haven't read a part in a book like that since pretty recently in The Expanse.
Oh yeah, except for one of the book series that we've read really recently where the whole tongue dies. So
The Expanse. Yeah. But still, I mean, the cold character that is Adrius Augustus, like wow. Like the fact that he can just stand there and order millions of people put to death in like a horrible way too. I mean,
he's like beyond. He needs to go.
Nuclear bombs they're really awful. Obviously, like a lot of people die instantly, but just as many people die horrifically. Yeah, and so he's subjugating millions and millions of people. It's like you just killed 6 million people. You just killed 5 million people. Like he kills so many people aren't there like 3 billion people on Luna or something like that? Like some ridiculous
It was
number.
basically just like a hissy fit that he's throwing.
Yeah, exactly. And it was alluded to, and it was foreshadowed earlier in the book, the idea that Adrius, you know, like he couldn't get his dad's love, so he killed his dad, and then it's like they were really worried about him having nukes because it's like if he can't get things exactly the way he wants, he's going to start nuking people. That's exactly what he did.
Yeah.
It's so horrible. I'm so glad that guy got his tongue ripped out.
Yeah. And then killed shortly after.
But Mustang grabs his feet at the end too.
Yes,
which I thought was good. A really cool touch. Yeah.
Because without that, I thought it was getting a little bit like, oh, okay, guys, let's be the bigger person here. We're like dismembering this person. No, it felt really good. It felt really good. But at the same time, we don't want to like
bigger person.
Yeah, we want to be the bigger person and not begin our taking over with like, cool. Now let's do the exact same thing that they did to us to them because they deserve it, which certainly they do. But I like the fact that it was like we got to feel the like pettiness of like, yes, his pain, and then also Mustang being like, but I got this and we'll be the bigger person.
See, and that's one of the inconsistencies that I see, at least with Darrow, is that like I feel like he's kind of all over the place sometimes with stuff where like in some moments he's like, no, we can't be on the same level as the Golds, like we can't just like blow stuff up willy-nilly and it's just all like we have to be better, and it's like, well, yeah, that's true, but it's like, what is up? Like, I can't get him blowing up the docks like that Ganymede out of my head. Like, it kind of just like, it kind of goes against everything that Darrow stands for to do that. And it was such a knee-jerk reaction, and it's not revisited later. Like, it's not, he doesn't think about it, he doesn't reflect on it like at all. Ugh, I don't know.
And he would suffer the like guilt of that for a long time. I think it was very much out of character. You're right, but I think it was Pierce Brown's way of being like, how do I button this story up because we still have a major problem in the outer reach of this solar system that he's going to either have to contend with, but I want the story to end cleanly with him destroying the Sovereign.
Yeah,
so I kind of feel like it was his weak way of patching that hole.
Him and Severo got in like a huge fight about this exact same thing, and then he like turns around and does it. Like, I don't know.
No, I mean his was actually strategic, whereas Severo's wasn't. Severo's was just like pouty.
Well, no, Severo wanted to blow up the entire helium-3 supply, which would have totally wrecked the economy and
right, but that would have done a really bad thing. Like Quicksilver explains it, where he's like, that actually wouldn't have helped your cause. For some reason, I don't remember it, but it was like a pretty good, like, oh, right. Like, no, that was just like we're going to destroy something. And that's actually not in the benefit of the rebellion.
Yeah. I mean, I know that Quicksilver
I forget what
was
his actual
right,
reason was, though.
I think that Gandalf would have been disappointed because I feel like it's sort of like when someone suggested to throw the ring into the ocean, it's like,
right, like, let tomorrow's
let them deal with that. Yeah. And he's like, no, you can't do that. Like, if you have this problem, like, you have to solve it. Like, this is your responsibility. And Darrow is like, someone else will deal with that later. Because he didn't say, like, I just made this problem go away. He was like, this will keep them busy for several years. But they'll come back.
I'm very curious, as we begin to wrap things up here, I'm really curious as to what's going to happen in the next few books. Like, I have no idea. It seems like all the conflict is kind of solved. I know, Evan, you said that you started reading a little bit, but Effy, do you have any ideas to what you think the story's going to become, where it's going to go?
I mean, I was hoping that there would be a time skip. I'm hoping that, and it sounds like there are multiple points of view chapters. So that's good.
That are different than just
Darrow.
That
are different than Darrow. That's like very important to me at this point in the series because it's been 3 long books with that guy. But I think it's going to be. I'm hoping that we get to see Darrow's kid, Hax, like get involved because if there's a time skip, then maybe this kid will start to like do the work of his parents, or maybe he'll disagree with it. Maybe he'll want to be a Gold. Maybe he'll resent being a Red. I don't know.
The next book is called Iron Gold. Iron Gold.
Isn't Iron Gold? Isn't like that what they call the original like OG Golds, like the hard asses?
That's the Peerless Guard. I don't know if they were iron.
No, the Iron.
It's kind of a mixture
Gold...
of the Iron Rain with the Golds. Maybe it's like Revenge of the Golds. They come back.
The Iron Golds were the ones who like fucked up Earth originally.
Oh, were they? I don't know.
That's how I remember it being explained, was that like the Golds that came down from Luna and fucked up Earth and made it so that Luna was in charge and that Golds were in charge and started this whole society. Like they were the Iron Golds. They were like the hardest of the hard. Fucking gold. Like, so I feel like
you're right.
I feel like if that's anything, it might allude to these hard, like honorable but terrifying Moon Lord Golds who, you know, were nuked at the end of that book. So I don't know.
I don't really know either. I think that's a good idea, though. I think they're going to have to deal with some sort of uprising or rebellion of their own. What I hope it's not is simply the Golds like coming back to take over and just like them like struggling with the same group again. I hope it's something new and fresh.
That would suck. Yeah.
Yeah, because they already fixed that problem. You know, I don't want to relive that.
I think Lysander is going to play a big role in the next couple of books. Like,
the kid that Cassius raises.
Yeah, I think Cassius is going to come back in some capacity, but I think Lysander is probably going to have a pretty big, if not big, like a pretty important part to play in a lot of this because, like, Mustang is the new sovereign, which I have thoughts about as well. Like, they're kind of like keeping to a certain status quo, which, like, I guess,
right? Like
it
let's
makes
change
sense,
the system, and we'll just take over by force and just
I mean, it's kind of giving me like it's weird that like they're rallying so hard against this system, but it seems to me more like they're rallying against the wrong people being in charge of this system.
Yeah, so, that's kind of gross.
But so I guess they do need to take over in order to reform.
Right. Yeah. There's a certain they can't just like completely tear everything down over the course of a couple days.
Right.
It would like ruin the entire society. I get that to a certain extent, but it's like at least like call or something else. I don't know. Like
just
like right or like end with like and we set forth to make this a democratic voting thing, but like
or something.
Yeah, and while we figure it out, we have a temporary sovereign.
But what do you think about Lysander? What do you think about Lysander? Just kind of, just
that
like,
was crazy.
Nah,
it's all good.
That was wild. She's like Mustang is she's carrying the sovereign's head in her hand with Lysander on the other side of her, and she's just like, "I'm your bitch now," and like he's totally cool with it. Yeah, it's weird.
I think that's a result of one thing for sure, and potentially another. One is that he was raised by the sovereign and obviously like prepared and kind of like mentally toughened in ways that we can't even imagine for like leadership and rule and like subjugating millions, right?
Yeah, he's a little king.
Yeah, he's like a little king, but also I think he has some maybe potential like jackal traits in that he's like an actual psychopath.
No,
you
I don't think so.
I don't know. I feel like he could rise and be a scary figure.
He briefly showed up in Golden Sun. And he was just like a cute little gold kid. Like he was obviously the sovereign's grandkid.
Who just doesn't care when like the person who's like playing their mom all their lives is like literally their head is being.
I don't think it's so much that he didn't care, and it was more that he knew what the protocol was, and so he might have had his own feelings about it, but he also just knew it wasn't the kind of thing that you're supposed to fight about. Like he knows the protocol.
Any 10-year-old that can hide that in that situation, I'm scared.
He's a gold. Gold kids are different. I don't know.
That's true.
But then there is hope though, because Cassius is the one who raises him. Little golden retriever man.
Do we trust Cassius? I mean, he did shoot him 6 times. No.
So I have a couple more notices real quick. One of them, real quick, is one of my favorite quotes in the book, and it's from Victra when she apprehends her sister and just basically texts them and says, "Bitch captured, Cavax free, victory mine." That's so good. Bitch captured,
so good.
That's amazing.
It was amazing.
But then leading into the next sequence of events. Okay, so this is my last little gripe with this book. Why the hell would you tell 2 prisoners, "I only need one of you," and then put them right next to each other? Like, what? Of course, one of them's going to kill the other one. One of them is like a bloodthirsty murderer, and the other one is just a little bronzy. Like, what? I don't know. I
mean,
I thought that was silly.
In a weird way, like, it's kind of Thistle's fault. Like, why the fuck would she get anywhere near Antonia? She was like within arm's reach of her.
Yeah,
and that should have never happened.
I wouldn't blame the victim in this situation personally. Like,
but like I'm saying, she was kind of dumb because she knew how
I agree with
horrible
you. She was kind of dumb.
Antonia is. Antonia is like
really bad.
Crazy.
Yeah, she killed
Real
her
bad.
mom.
Yeah.
She
She killed her mom
and she's got that gold strength.
Yeah, no way.
But,
I would have stayed on the other side and been like, no, bitch.
I would have put them in completely different areas. Like, it's so silly that they just locked them up right next to each other. And then they were just like, well, we only need to keep one of you alive.
How often in movies where they like throw all of the good guys into the same jail cell, and you're like, really, why would they do that? That's ridiculous to have them working together. Okay, one of my favorite quotes here was Severo to Darrow while talking about Cassius and the potential for him being on his side and being redeemed instead of just killing him. And he says, just because you're right doesn't mean you're right. And I was like, that one hit hard. I like that a lot.
One other thing that I wanted to ask you, this is going to be my last question of the episode, and then we should just start reading Iron Gold immediately because I want to I want to read Lightbringer. Apparently Lightbringer is amazing. So I bet apparently it's Brown's best writing. It's shorter than Dark Age. Yeah, I'm excited to see what's happening. But I have a question, and it's, why do you think the Sovereign didn't kill Darrow like immediately?
When he walked into that bunker?
So at the end of the book, Darrow gets his hand cut off. Severo is, if not dead, unconscious, basically useless until he gets a big jab of drugs. So it's Cassius, Antonia, Aja, Darrow, the Sovereign, Lysander, and a bunch of Obsidians. The Sovereign sends all the Obsidians out, right? Mm-hmm. And I understand that the reason the Jackal is there is because the Jackal is holding the moon hostage, basically. I get all of that.
Yeah.
Right. Why wouldn't the Sovereign immediately kill Darrow? Like, if I was the Sovereign, I would have just killed him and been done with it.
No,
like immediately.
So Darrow is a bit of a weird mythical figure at this point. Like, they've tried and failed
killing him
to
will
kill
make him
him.
a martyr.
They've tried and failed to kill him twice publicly. Like, on camera, he has died and then not been dead. And so I feel like
cockroach.
Yeah, so if they just said, yeah, we got him, like, people would be like, no, you didn't, and they would just like keep fighting. And so she had to like get it on camera.
It was on camera
again, you know,
but it was so much talking. Like, it was they killed Antonia before they killed Darrow.
Yeah,
they have to monologue.
They have a speech.
And I understand. I understand from like a writing perspective. Obviously, we're not going to kill Darrow, right?
Right.
We're going to need to have a little bit of monologuing here, but I mean, it's like the Sovereign kills Antonia before she kills Darrow. You know what I mean? She's like, well, I've got this rebel leader here and everyone's watching, but first let me take care of this other little thorn in my side.
Yeah,
it's just like, wait, no, like
I feel
if I was the Sovereign, I would be like, okay, open this guy's throat in front of don't hang him.
Monologue to his bubbling corpse.
Like, no, let's Braveheart style, like, actually kill this guy. You know, but obviously I'm not saying like Pierce Brown should have killed Darrow in the third book. That would have been pretty interesting, though.
That would have been pretty cool, though.
I thought he was going to die and would have been cool with it, honestly.
Yeah. There was a lot of Darrow. I mean,
there was a lot.
I really like Darrow as a character.
I love him, but I think story-wise, it would have been a good story if he died.
Yeah, I mean, I was a little fatigued with Darrow. Just not because like. You know, not because he was just like, oh, Severo and Victor are getting married, but I can't celebrate because I'm too sad. You know, like
he's just kind of like a one track.
But that's not really as fatiguing. It's more like, okay, we've had 3 books from one perspective.
Right. That's why I'm really excited. The next book is.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of Darrow still, obviously.
That's okay.
But
as long as it's not mainly him or only him, you know.
No, it's not only him. No, I think switching to multiple POVs, because not only is this story kind of, I think, would benefit from getting more POVs now that we've been with Darrow for so long, but I think that the nature of this conflict is expanding and getting more complicated than just Darrow needs to blow up these ships at this time, and he needs to, is a lot more involved now that we're a lot farther into it. So having more characters. I wonder if he's going to stick to first person POVs though. That would be interesting. Like doing multiple POVs, but all in first person, present tense. Like, what are you doing?
Interesting.
Like this,
that would be crazy,
so wacky. Yep. But if anyone can do it, it's Pierce Brown.
If there's one thing that has stood the test of all 3 books and it stayed the same, is that Pierce Brown is an amazing writer and can pack one hell of a punch into his stories, and so much story in such little time. I'm just very impressed every time I turn a page.
Yeah. No, he is. Same. He is very, very good at what he does. It's. I think there's like a great balance here of humor, of intensity, of emotion, pacing. Like he really is. Yeah, he's very on top of it. I do feel like if I was gonna put my critic pants on, which like, who am I? You know what I mean? Like
you're a book reviewer. That's what you do, baby.
But like, if I was gonna put my critic pants on, I feel like there are just some things, like with Severo's gun, the Sovereign not killing Darrow, just like some kind of small things.
Speeches at like age 14.
The movie would be over.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's just some like fairly Deus Ex Machina type things going on, like sometimes, but like it's so few and far between. It's like not even a big deal, and I like reading them. It's cool. Like, but there's a rule with writing that I've kind of taken to heart and really, really like this rule. And it's basically you can use coincidence to get your characters into trouble, but you can't use coincidence to get your characters out of trouble.
Yes.
So
yes, and they use coincidence to get out of the end of the book.
Yeah. So
trouble.
I don't think that's necessarily a hard and fast rule you absolutely have to stick to no matter what, but it is just like a thing that I notice sometimes. Not just with Pierce Brown is not the only person that does this. Like I've read lots and lots of fantasy books, but it's just like in while we're on the subject of like shitting on stuff, but like with like the inheritance cycle, and I'm not giving anything away, but there is just kind of like it's a good thing they had that one thing that just appeared like in the book at one point, and like that's cool that it's in this spot when they needed it, I guess. Like whatever that thing was, Hey,
listen, I've said it before and I'll say it again. My one go-to that is kind of a weak cop-out statement, but it's how I explain it, is they don't write stories about the stories that like crazy things don't happen in, right? Like there's so many stories out there, so we get to hear the ones that are recorded that crazy things did happen in because they succeeded, and it's just like, I kind of justify it that way, but like
that's cool.
You're not wrong. It does kind of, sometimes it takes you out of the story, like the Bye Felicia thing is like, okay.
Yeah.
I think one thing to remember with stuff like this is that the author is completely drumming all of this up from thin air, right? Like, I mean, you really need to remember that, and I know
it's so impressive.
Yeah, it's really impressive, and like, I know that with everybody has a certain threshold for their suspension of disbelief, right? And it depends on the context of what's happening in the book. It depends on what's going on. Everybody's different, but you do have to be with fantasy and science fiction and horror, genre fiction in general, especially when it's this crazy, when it's this all over the place. You do have to just like let some stuff go now and then. You just have to be like, okay, sure. Adrius decided to kill Darrow with Severo's gun because that's how it happened. Neville knocked over all the time turners because Neville knocked over all the time turners. Like it's just fine. It's not great. It's a little clumsy, but that's what it was. Like
that's the story.
Not like 100% out of the realm of possibility that Adrius would think it was poetic to use Severo's gun. You know.
No, for sure.
He probably would. And there's also...
He was a narcissist as fuck.
Yeah, and like to answer my own question about why the Sovereign didn't kill Darrow immediately is because these Golds think they're gods. It doesn't matter how many times it's proved to them that they're not. They still carry on thinking that. I don't think the Sovereign was actually concerned about Darrow at any point during
No.
any of this.
No.
I think
She rolled her eyes at him when he came in. She was just like, ugh, this
She
guy.
was concerned about Darrow. She was concerned about the Jackal who had a bunch of nukes pointed at her city.
Right.
He should have been, yeah.
But he was a gold also. So it's like she could take all of his threats seriously.
Yeah.
But Darrow is just like, ugh.
But
Die
I do
already.
think
within her worldview.
But I do think, as we keep reading this series, I still think that the real undoing of the Golds is going to be their own hubris. They're going to be constantly. I don't even think that it's necessarily that they're underestimating Darrow. I think that they fundamentally don't understand him.
Yeah,
I think that's
for
what
sure.
it is. Like,
They're entirely correct.
Yeah, like I think they're worried about it, but they're not concerned about the right things.
Right.
And they've been born into power. They're so used to them. It's the natural order of things that they're at the top of the food chain
For
and it's
hundreds of years.
For hundreds of years. And it's like not only taught to them in their schools to be this way, but like it's bred into them. Like I'm not surprised at all that they're like, no, we are going to like our reign will continue. Like we are the best, obviously, you know? And they obviously are from their perspective, you know, the things they value.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to minimize people to dogs here or anything, but it would be like if a bunch of dogs got together and went to the Supreme Court and said, hey, we're taking over the United States. They'd be like, the fuck you are.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Okay, sure.
This
Next
is
order
the
of business.
silliest thing I've ever seen. And even if dogs started bombing like huge buildings full of administrators and like disrupting the legislative process and stuff, they'd just be like, man, these dogs suck. Like, let's get them out of here. Like, what the hell? You know, like they still wouldn't get it. You know, it's so far out of the realm of possibility for them. I'm not comparing the Reds to dogs. Okay.
No,
it's just,
no.
You know what I'm doing.
Just the American people. No, that's fine.
Hear that, Americans?
No, I agree with you.
But yeah, that's going to do it for us today, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. It was a little bit rambly. This is the way that we like to do it with three people. And I'm so happy that we have Effy on here for these episodes.
Effy, you're doing a great job. And everyone thinks so.
Thank you.
Chad and I agree with each other enough for these episodes. We really like having you around here to kind of give us your opinion on things. So I just wanted to ask before we leave, Effy, do you think that this series, like this experience reading like this, you know, you haven't really read a lot of science fiction, you haven't really read a lot of fantasy, nothing that's like this kind of concurrent series of books. Has this inspired you to read more stuff like this, like read more fantasy, read more science fiction, longer series,
like when you get done with
like
school,
that?
have some more time.
Yeah. Do you think you're going to read more?
I've actually found myself kind of more curious than I had.
You are
been.
dating the exact right person.
I know. It's like, because obviously you have a lot of books and stuff, but like
you might find your own stuff though. Yeah,
I had never really like considered them part of my lifestyle. That was like your lifestyle was the reading, and mine was being awesome in other ways.
Totally.
But I don't know. I've started to kind of like get curious about other fantasy books.
Totally.
Other sci-fi. Okay. I'm open to it.
Maybe we'll have to have Effy on for when Stormlight 5 comes out.
Oh God, no.
So she can read like those monstrosities.
They're so good though.
They're
oh my
so
God.
good.
They're
just as good as Red Rising.
They're so big.
They're
if
like
not better.
If not a little bit. Yeah.
They're as big as my head.
I think I like Stormlight more than Red Rising. I think
the writing is so small.
I think I like Stormlight more than Red Rising.
I do. Yeah.
But it's so close. Like, because I still haven't read Rhythm of War yet. But
me neither.
Yeah, maybe getting Effy on for maybe not Stormlight.
It's too much.
Maybe Mistborn.
Mistborn would be really fun.
Something smaller.
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 I thought when I agreed to this, I thought I was agreeing to 3 books.
6, baby.
So
no, 6, yeah.
I'm an enormous trooper and
Yes, you are.
Enormous trooper. Not only that, I mean, I have taken like so many. Like I began you joining us by thanking you, being like, "Thank you for all of the book reviews, Kill fans, and for me personally, that for giving us so much of your partner, because I know we take a lot of his time, and it is very special that we have that much of him."
Well, until we figure out what else we're going to have Effy read with us, we still have 3 books left, and they're chonkers. They're big books. And so we've still got a lot more of Effy. We've still got a lot more Red Rising ahead of us. Everybody, again, thank you so much for listening to this episode. Look out for our episode for Iron Gold. It should be coming out in about a week and a half, 2 weeks, something like that. It looks like we're kind of taking a little bit more of our time with this. These books are pretty long. And in like
pretty long.
getting all three of us on the same schedule, while Chad and I are also reading other books as well.
And you're like publishing one, so yeah, lots going on. Lots going on.
I forgot about that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm also making one, which I still want to do a recap and discussion once that's all settled.
Oh, dude, once everyone else can read it too, we're absolutely gonna rip it to pieces on this podcast.
Yeah, no, I'd love to bring Effy on for it because
that would be fun. Yeah,
she's had insights. Like when I'm talking about it, she's just like, "Well, what about this?" And I'm like, "Oh my god, you're so right about."
I know. Think
about
honestly,
that. Yeah, I feel like Effy
say,
understands my book better than I do.
I feel like I am like I've written some of this book. Like, I mean, maybe not like physically with my hands, but like with my mind.
Chad feels like that too.
Dude, yeah, it's kind of nice, isn't it? Like, you don't have to do all the terrible, awful work. You just kind of get that little like. You get to like sprinkle in some spritz at the end and be like, I did something.
I did something.
Yeah, and then I have to sit down. I'm like, oh my god, why are they ambling everywhere? I've used that word like 4 times in this paragraph. Like, yeah, so I got.
Effy, I'm so glad that you also noticed the phlegm thing.
Oh my god,
Evan said that you noticed that because it's like one of my least favorite words in the entire like all of everything.
Oh yeah, it's because it's one of the worst things.
Okay, so for everybody listening, Chad and Effy kind of let the cat out of the bag.
No, we can cut all this out.
No, we don't have to cut it.
You can get it out.
You can cut all this out.
No, it's fine. It's fine. So I had used the word phlegm 12 times.
A lot of phlegm.
That is 11 times too many.
Yeah. So
straight up.
I reduced it down to 1 time. There was one I wouldn't let go, which needs to be there, but I cut them all out. And I think even my agent was like, dude, why did you use this word so many times?
I just hate
it wasn't
word
that
so much.
many. Like, I mean, it's like 80,000
like I said,
words
it's 11 times too many.
It made me feel so justified when I heard that you also said something, because I just like personally just that word is just like makes me shudder. And then when Evan was like, yeah, no, like Effy said the same thing. I was like, yes, justified.
Great. There's definitely some different words I have some pet words, I use
so it's real fun and real rich coming from a state point of never having written a book to be like judging you for your book. So I acknowledge the richness of it for sure.
No, I need the critique. I mean, sometimes you're looking too hard at a project and you think everything's cool, and then somebody reads something and they're like, wait, why the hell did you do that? And you're like, why the hell did I do that?
I'm not sure.
I'm actually really curious. I wish I could read like a first draft of Red Rising, and just see,
or any book that you really find.
Yeah, I think that would make you feel so relieved.
Yeah, I think
that
so too.
You're not the only one that writes a rough draft.
Yeah. No, I'm sure of it. I know that Brandon Sanderson released his kind of rough draft for The Way of Kings a little while ago, and I haven't read it yet, but I've heard it's like. It's a lot different. Like, like Sanderson. Yeah, at this point, I feel like you could.
We all know that
argue.
He's amazing.
Yeah, you could just like nobody could look at his draft of Way of Kings and be like, "Aha! I knew he was a terrible writer."
Right.
Like, no, he was hiding it from us this whole time.
No, I didn't mean that. Like he was brave because it could have changed people's mind. I meant like it's really hard to be that vulnerable.
Yeah.
Really absolutely is. It's difficult. Thank you speaking of vulnerability again, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to us talking for so long about all these books, everything that we do. You've been with us for this whole ride on this episode.
It is truly
and
one of the most special
it.
Things I've ever experienced.
For real. But that's going to do it for us today, everybody. I hope you have an awesome rest of your day. And of course, happy reading.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
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 Hit us with that bye one more time.
Bye.